Hey everyone, tonight we're diving into the brutally hot, soot-covered life of a man who literally forged the medieval world, the blacksmith. You've probably seen them in movies, swinging hammers at glowing iron in slow motion, sparks flying majestically through the air. But trust me, being a real medieval blacksmith was nothing like a dramatic training montage. It was dirty, exhausting, and blistering work. And in most cases, it absolutely sucked. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like this video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is. It's always fascinating to know who's joining us from around the world. Now, let's dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for a soft hum, and lose ourselves in tonight's journey together. Part 1. The Life of a Medieval Blacksmith. You are born into the soot-covered nobility of medieval blacksmiths. No crown, no lands, no fancy titles. Just the family forge, anvil-shaped blisters, and the smell of hot iron woven into your swaddling clothes. From the moment you can walk without stumbling into the fire pit, you're expected to help. By age 6, you are officially your father's apprentice, which is the polite medieval way of saying unpaid tiny assistant with no benefits and permanent soot stains on your face. Your toys are tongs. Your playground is the dirt floor next to a furnace hot enough to singe your eyebrows off. While the other village kids are chasing chickens and throwing rocks, you're learning how not to die next to molten metal. Your first lessons are, guess how hot this is with your hand. Hold this hammer until your arm falls off. And try not to cry when you mess up the nail again. Your father, the smith, is a terrifyingly muscular man whose vocabulary consists of sighs, grunts, and the phrase, hit it harder. He has hands like tree bark and a permanent scowl forged from decades of smoke and tax collectors. He teaches you everything: how to shape iron, how to feed the fire, how to shut up when a knight insults your work. You don't ask questions. You just watch, absorb, and obey. Mostly because asking questions leads to a flying horseshoe and a week of the silent treatment. Holidays? That's a nice idea. You don't get those. The forge doesn't rest, and neither do you. There's always someone who needs something sharpened, fixed, or reforged. You learn quickly that free time is just the space between one job and the next. And while you're technically learning a trade, what you're really learning is a tolerance for pain, heat, and how to fall asleep standing up. By the time you're 10, you smell like iron, swear like a miner, and have arms strong enough to carry buckets of water heavier than your dog, assuming the dog hadn't already run away from the noise 2 years ago. This is your life now. Welcome to the family business. Hope you like sweat, smoke, and a lifetime of back pain. If you thought you'd get a few decent years of fun before the hammer came down, think again. Childhood in the world of a medieval blacksmith was more of a suggestion than a phase. The moment you could lift a bucket without toppling over, you were drafted. Forget games, toys, or any concept of joy. Your playroom was a smoke-filled shed full of sharp objects and open flames. Your jungle gym was a rack of tongs next to a pit of glowing coals. One wrong step, and you'd get a pop quiz on how long your skin can sizzle before your father notices. Your official title might be apprentice, but what it really meant was do everything no one else wants to do and get yelled at anyway. You stoked the fire, pumped the bellows, swept the floor, cleaned the tools, restacked the charcoal, and tried not to get impaled by a falling horseshoe, all before breakfast. You were paid in food, grim nods, and the occasional soft grunt of approval, which in blacksmith speak meant you didn't completely ruin it today. Meanwhile, the village kids you used to know were out in the fields, probably throwing sticks or learning to milk goats. You envied them, even if they smelled like cheese and manure. They might grow up to be farmers or shepherds. Humble jobs, sure, but ones that involved less molten weaponry and surprise third-degree burns. You, on the other hand, were learning to make nails by hand, thousands of them, bent, twisted, and reheated over and over until they were straight enough to hold some lord's chicken coop together. If you were lucky, your father would let you swing the hammer yourself, right after he pointed out every single thing you were doing wrong. And don't even think about saying, "I'm tired." That phrase didn't exist in the forge. Tired was for the weak. Burnout was for candles. You kept swinging, kept sweating, kept smiling, or at least tried not to cry where anyone could see. Because in the eyes of your master, who was also your father, you weren't a kid anymore. You were a blacksmith in training, and the training never ended. The forge isn't just where you work, it's your entire existence. It dominates your senses, reshapes your muscles, and reprograms your brain. By the time you're a teenager, it doesn't just feel like a place, it feels like a living thing, a hot, smoky, temperamental beast that you have to feed, control, and fear. You know its sounds by heart: the wheezing breath of the bellows, the hiss of iron and water, the sharp, percussive clang of hammer on metal that echoes like a battle drum. There's a rhythm to it, like some brutal medieval symphony, and your body moves to it, whether you're awake or half delirious. After a while, you stop noticing the heat. It's not that it gets easier. It's that you just accept it, like gravity or taxes. You know which stones are too hot to sit on, which type of charcoal burns the fastest, and which parts of the floor are secretly trying to murder your feet. Your skin is tanned by smoke, not sun. Your clothes, the same smoke-stained tunic and leather apron you wear every day, smell like a combination of burnt wool, grease, and despair. You don't own much, but you own this forge. Not on paper, of course. Your father technically still runs it, but in practice, it owns you. You start to forget what silence sounds like. The hiss, the clang, the crackle, it's constant. When the forge does go quiet, it's almost disturbing. You find yourself twitching as if you've missed a beat in a song you've been forced to memorize since childhood. Your friends, assuming you still have any, rarely see you. He's probably at the forge, becomes your default status. You aren't a smith. You are the forge, a two-legged extension of fire and steel. And weirdly, a part of you starts to love it. Not the burns, not the blisters, but the feeling when the shape finally works, when the horseshoe fits, when the blade gleams, when the metal bends to your will. For a moment, you're not just a soot-covered kid. You're a creator, a craftsman, a necessary cog in the medieval machine. Then the moment passes. The next order comes in, and the fire roars to life again. It's time to get back to work. By the time your friends are just starting to grow into lanky young men, your body already feels like it's been through a siege. While they're getting taller and stronger, you're getting hunched, scarred, and stiff. Your arms are thick, but not in a heroic, sword-lifting knight kind of way. More like a teenager who's been repeatedly attacked by anvils. Your back, a tragedy, slumped from hauling metal and bending over the forge for hours every day. Your knees, they crackle when you bend down. Your shoulders, they make a dry pop every time you lift the hammer, a sound as familiar as its own clang. And your hands. Let's talk about your hands. They aren't fingers anymore. They're tools of flesh and bone, calloused and rigid. They're blistered, cracked, and stained with soot so deep not even the Nile could wash it clean. Cuts are normal. Burns are daily. And your fingernails, half of them are either permanently black or just gone. When someone hands you a piece of bread, you hold it clumsily because your knuckles lost their flexibility a long time ago. There's no such thing as recovery time. Pulled a muscle. Work through it. Sprained a wrist. Use the other hand. The forge doesn't care that your elbow is screaming. The iron doesn't wait politely while you take a break. And don't forget sleep. You'd think with a day full of hammering and hauling, you'd pass out easily. But no. Your muscles ache so much you can't lie still. Your ears are still ringing from 10 hours of clanging, and your arms twitch with phantom hammer swings, like you're sword-fighting ghosts in your dreams. The pain just layers on top of other pain, until you can't tell them apart anymore. And what does your father say about this? Good. You're learning. In a strange way, you are. You're not growing despite the pain. You're growing because of it. You're being tempered, just like the metal you work, shaped by heat, pressure, and repetition. But make no mistake, by the time you reach adulthood, your body feels like it's lived 2 lives and died halfway through both of them. And the worst part? You're just getting started. In most jobs, smoke is a problem. In your job, it's a coworker, and a particularly rude one at that. The forge isn't just hot, it's a suffocation chamber. And every breath you take is seasoned with the delicate aroma of coal dust, burning metal, ash, and regret. If you can see more than 6 feet in front of you, congratulations, someone forgot to light the fire. There's no chimney, just a hole in the roof, which leaks more smoke in than it lets out. You try opening a window. There are no windows, just soot-blackened walls, your father's cough, and the occasional gust of wind that blows everything into your eyes. Your lungs, let's just say they've entered into a long-term toxic relationship with the smoke. At first, it burns. Then it's annoying. Then one day, it's just normal. The coughing fits are part of the rhythm. The black phlegm, not ideal. But hey, at least it's consistent. You've gotten to the point where fresh air feels suspicious. Your voice changes too. It gets raspy and heavy, worn down by years of breathing air thick with soot. Your words are gruffer. Your breaths are shorter. And your throat always feels like it's hosting a dust storm. But you keep working because you have to. And it's not just the smoke from the fire. There's metal dust from grinding, oil fumes from quenching, and the occasional smell of burning leather, burning wood, or whatever unfortunate material just fell into the coals. You've probably inhaled 3 different kinds of poison before noon. Protective gear? Please. A rag tied around your face is the best you can do. And even that gets sweaty, disgusting, and somehow smells worse than the smoke. You take it off, and suddenly it's a little harder to breathe, but at least you're not choking on your own sweat. Long-term damage? Of course. Asthma, black lung, an early death. It's all part of the career package. But you're not thinking long term. You're thinking about finishing that gate hinge before your father notices how crooked it is. In the world of a medieval blacksmith, the air is just another burden. You don't breathe to live. You breathe to keep swinging the hammer. By now, you've developed an intimate relationship with your tools, based mostly on pain, necessity, and mutual disrespect. Your hammer, it's basically an extension of your arm. You've named it, you've cursed it, and you've swung it so many times your shoulder now makes a dry pop every time you raise it. But without it, you're just a sweaty guy standing in a smoky hut. The hammer makes you a smith, and also makes you bleed on a regular basis. Then there are your tongs, awkward, hot, and always pinching your hand at the worst possible moment. You've burned your fingertips more times than you've successfully gripped anything. The iron slips, the handle gives, you scream. Your father tells you to grip it like you mean it. You consider throwing them into the fire just to teach them a lesson. Your chisel. It used to be sharp. Now, it's mostly a suggestion of a blade, because you've used it to shape, split, scrape, and occasionally pry open stuck doors when your neighbor broke their lock. The files, the awls, the punches, the rivet sets. Your tool bench looks like a medieval torture rack. And to be honest, it might as well be. You've been stabbed, smashed, pinched, cut, and impaled by every single item you own. Your fingers have a memory now. They flinch at the mere sight of a new tool. Your apron. It's supposed to protect you, and it sort of does. If protect means catching hot pieces of metal and holding them against your body like a smoldering hug. It's more burn than stitch, and the leather gets as stiff as a corpse every winter. And yet, despite all this, you care for these tools like they're family. You sharpen them, oil them, line them up every night. Because if one breaks, you're done. You can't work. You can't earn. You can't eat. No tools, no income. So yes, the tools are your life. But don't be fooled. They have also declared war on your fingers, your spine, and your sanity. Every day they whisper, "We help you survive, but we will also slowly destroy you." And you say, "Yeah, that sounds about right. Now hand me the hammer." You wear no crown, carry no sword, lead no armies, but without you, the village would grind to a halt by Tuesday. You are the blacksmith, and everyone needs you, all the time, for everything. You are a combination of customer service, tech support, and medieval roadside assistance, all wrapped up in a soot-covered package that reeks of smoke and resignation. A knight needs a new sword. You make it. A farmer breaks his plowshare. You fix it. A monk's bell cracks. A baker's oven door sticks. A shepherd's gate latch won't close. Guess who gets the call? That's right, you. Every single time. And they all act like you were just sitting around waiting for their problem to exist. They show up unannounced, mid-swing, covered in mud and self-importance. "I know you're busy," they say, "but could you just..." That phrase haunts you. But here's the best part. You never get thanked. They assume it's your duty, that you were born to serve. If their hoe works, their door closes, or their shield holds, they nod and walk away as if you're the lucky one. As if you should be honored to fix their rusty bucket at dusk in exchange for half a loaf of stale bread. Payment is often inconsistent. Sometimes coins, sometimes goods, sometimes promises they'll forget by the next market day. One man paid you with a dead chicken. Good for soup. It was not. You're also the one who fixes problems that aren't yours. The hinge that bent because someone sat on the gate, you fix it. The dagger that broke in a drunken brawl, you fix it. The mysterious piece of iron that no one can identify, but absolutely must be repaired. Yep, still you. Yet when the village praises anyone, it's the knight, the priest, or the miller with the fat goat. You're just background noise, a necessity, a reliable tool, not a person. But here's the secret. You know they couldn't last a week without your work. Their fields would stall, their houses would fall apart, their horses would go lame. And while they don't sing songs about you, their entire world is held together, quietly, by your hands. You'd think peace would be good news. No raiders, no bandits, no lords screaming for a new sword by sunset. But for you, peace is terrible for business. Because you, the blacksmith, may work on plows and hinges, but what really pays the bills is war. When there's fighting, everyone needs you. Weapons, armor, arrowheads by the hundred. Even the horseshoes wear out faster under the weight of panicked cavalry. You are flooded with work. The forge burns brighter. The coins roll in. You might be exhausted, but your belly is full, and your tab at the tavern is temporarily forgotten. But then the war ends. The local lord declares a truce. The knights stop marching, and suddenly your orders dry up. No more swords, no more helmets. Just a farmer asking if you can sharpen a scythe and maybe take 3 onions as payment. And sure, you can make household goods, cauldrons, door handles, roasting spits, but there's not much profit in it. People want you to work like a magician, but they want to pay you like a stable boy. You become a negotiator, a beggar, and a merchant all at once, haggling for a decent wage as if your forge were a market stall. And don't even think about raising your prices. People look at you like you just cursed their cow. But you're just banging on metal, they say, as if the hot iron bends itself into shape while singing hymns. You start to miss the chaos, not the blood, not the burning villages, but the steady flow of orders, the purpose, the rush of knights lining up outside your forge with dented shields and ready coin purses. You were important. Now, you're making keys for doors no one locks, patching pots that should have been thrown away, and fixing tools so old they belong in a museum, not a field. Peace for everyone else means safety and rest. For you, it means economic anxiety and hunger. And deep down, though you'd never say it, a part of you whispers, wouldn't mind a small skirmish, just a little one, a minor border dispute perhaps. Because when swords break, you eat. Some jobs have an end point, a clear finish line, a task completed followed by rest, praise, or at least a hot bowl of soup. Smithing is not one of them. Your work is never done. Not today, not tomorrow, not even in your dreams. You fix one thing, and 3 more break. Patch a gate hinge, the cartwheel falls off. Finish a batch of nails, someone shows up demanding 10 more, but longer this time, and I can't pay until the harvest. You wake up before the sun and go to bed long after it's disappeared behind the trees. And even then, your brain keeps hammering. You dream of bellows, sparks, and the customer who still owes you half a dozen eggs and a thank you. Even the quick jobs are never quick. A villager walks in, holding a mangled rake. Just a quick fix, they say. But you know it's 2 hours of reshaping, reheating, hammering, and nodding politely while they ask, "Is it done yet?" every 5 minutes. And just when you think you can finally sit down, maybe drink something that isn't lukewarm and smoky, your apprentice runs in. The priest's horse threw a shoe. Of course it did, because you're the smith, and around here, smith means everyone's last resort. The forge demands constant attention. The fire won't stay lit on its own. The tools will rust if left alone. Your anvil shifts in the summer heat. Your bellows crack in the winter cold. Everything is either breaking or threatening to break. Even holidays don't stop the work. Sunday is technically a day of rest, unless, of course, someone's cart breaks down on the way to market. Then suddenly, you're back in your apron, half awake, praying the priest doesn't walk by while you're hammering on the Lord's Day. You don't keep a to-do list. That would imply there's a point when it would all be crossed off. There isn't, because smithing isn't a job. It's a cycle. Work, fix, repeat, until your body gives out or your hammer breaks. You didn't choose this life. The forge chose you through the calloused hands of your father and the iron expectations passed down like a rusty heirloom. And now, you're doing the same thing. Your son isn't playing with wooden swords or running wild in the fields. He's fetching charcoal, pumping the bellows, holding the tongs steady while sparks rain down, and you mutter, "Don't flinch." He's maybe 7, but he already smells like burnt metal and damp sacks. You feel a pang of guilt, but only a small one. Because you're not being cruel. You're preparing him. This is the trade. This is survival. He watches you swing the hammer, and you see the way he stares, wide-eyed, half in awe, half in terror. You remember that look. It's the one you used to give your own father, back when he seemed like a mountain. Now you understand. He wasn't made of stone, just exhaustion and responsibility. You teach the boy everything. How to judge heat by color, how to tap instead of smash, how to listen to the metal. Sometimes you yell, more out of habit than anger. Keep it straight. It's too cold. Don't cry. It's just a burn. You try to soften things where you can. A story by the fire, a piece of dried fruit when you can afford it. But softness doesn't last long in the forge. There's too much to do. His hands will look like yours soon enough. His back will ache before his voice breaks. He will learn to sleep through the ringing in his ears and wake up before dawn without being told. He will outgrow his tunic, but not his burn scars. And when you finally break, your knees, your shoulders, your lungs, he will carry the hammer you can no longer lift. People might say it's not fair that the cycle should end, but this is how it's always been. A lineage of soot, steel, and survival. You're not just passing on a trade, you're passing on a legacy, a forge that never goes cold. So yes, you raise your son to do it all over again, not because you are cruel, but because someone has to keep the fire burning. You've spent a lifetime standing too close to the fire, swinging too much iron, and breathing too little fresh air. It was never a question of if your body would break down, only when. And now, it's happening. Your knees creak like wooden doors in a storm. Your back refuses to straighten anymore. Your fingers, once strong enough to bend steel, now tremble when you lift a cup. The forge still roars, but your arms no longer answer. The hammer feels heavier each day, as if it knows it's nearly time to leave your hands. You don't go out in a blaze of glory. There is no heroic end, no ballad. You just slow down. You start passing tasks to your son. You sit more, watch more. He asks you questions, and for the first time, you struggle to remember the answers. The villagers start going to him now. They still nod respectfully as they pass you, but they talk to your son. He has the calloused hands now. The fresh burns are his. The pain of the trade has moved to a new set of shoulders. And quietly, you are proud. You were never rich. You never owned land or books or fine clothes. But you were necessary. You kept the sword sharp, the wheels turning, the gate swinging, and the farms running. The world didn't thank you often, but it ran on you. You probably won't see 50. Most smiths don't. The damage adds up. The lungs, black from years of smoke. The joints, worn down like iron on stone. The heart, exhausted from the heat and the relentless effort. But when you go, your work remains. The nails in the church door, the blades at the noble's hips, the horses, shoed and ready for the road. You leave behind no titles, only tools, scars, and a son with a hammer. And in your world, that is enough. They might bury you in a simple grave. No gold, no monuments, just a name carved in wood. But when the church bell rings, when the horseshoes clatter on the stone, when the sound of a hammer still strikes iron somewhere in the village, you are still alive. You were never a knight. You didn't ride into battle with banners flying or wear gleaming armor that caught the sun. But you made that armor. You didn't till the fields, but you made the plows that broke the earth. You didn't bake the bread, but you forged the oven doors. You didn't build the castle, but every nail in its beams, every hinge on its gates was touched by your fire. You were a blacksmith, and in the medieval world, that meant everything. While the lords argued and the kings changed crowns, you stood at your forge, day after day, shaping the world one piece at a time. 1,000 small things, rivets, hooks, braces, buckles. Nothing that drew a crowd, but everything that kept the world from falling apart. Your life was loud, but your legacy is quiet. No one wrote songs about your hammer. No minstrel sang praises of your tongs. But every wheel that worked, every sword that didn't break, every barn door that swung instead of collapsing, that was you. People walked past your forge and saw smoke. They smelled the sweat and the soot and assumed that was all there was. But inside was a symphony of heat and steel, of creation and endurance. You didn't just forge iron, you forged civilization. One horseshoe, one blade, one nail at a time. And now, long after your hands are at rest, the fire continues. Your son lifts your hammer. His son learns the heat. Your name may fade from memory, but the tools you made live on, passed from hand to hand, from generation to generation. You were never crowned, never honored, never celebrated. But without you, nothing moved. No cart rolled, no army marched, no home was secure. You are the foundation beneath the history books, the glowing coal beneath the stories of kings. And that matters more than anyone ever said. Because in a world made of wood, stone, and will, you were the fire, the quiet spark that turned raw ore into progress. You weren't just a part of the world. You kept it turning. Part 2, Alchemy and the Soul. When fire speaks. You are standing in the middle of an old room, a space seemingly forgotten by time. The floor is paved with large, cold stones, worn smooth by the footsteps of countless generations. The air is thick, carrying the scent of old paper, dried herbs, and a slightly pungent aroma of minerals. This room is sealed, without a single window looking out into the world. The only source of light, the very heart of the room, is the warm, orange-red glow from an ancient, meticulously handcrafted brick furnace. The flame dances ceaselessly, casting the shadows of strange objects onto the stone walls, making them look like giant creatures breathing slowly. The silence is almost absolute. It is so deep that you can hear the most subtle sounds. The tiny crackle of the burning charcoal, the soft sizzle of oil in a lamp, and the gentle vibration of glass as the temperature in the room shifts, as if the flasks are whispering to one another. On the dark oak shelves, covered in the dust of ages, are hundreds of glass vials, curved neck retorts, and old crucibles. Some vials contain liquids that shimmer like moonlight dissolved in water: silver, emerald green, amber. Others hold powders as fine as pollen, white as snow, black as velvet. Dangling from the rafters are bunches of dried herbs: lavender, rosemary, wormwood, hanging like gentle souls, waiting to be awakened by the warmth of the fire. In a corner, placed reverently on a wooden stand, is a colossal book, its leather cover cracked with age. Its pages are yellowed, the edges frayed. It is written in an ancient script that the naked eye can hardly read. It is not a script for recording information, but a script of symbols, of metaphors. A script not just to be understood by the mind, but to be felt by the heart, by the stillness of the soul. This room does not belong to any specific era. It could be the laboratory of a learned Arab scholar in Abbasid Baghdad, the secret chamber of an ancient Egyptian hermit by the Nile, or the meditation cell of a Tibetan monk in the Himalayas. But wherever it is, in whatever culture, its masters call this place by a solemn name, the place where the great work, the magnum opus, unfolds. This is not just a workplace. It is a sanctuary, the starting point of the most profound transformation. Alchemy, in its deepest essence, is not magic or a trick to create gold. It is a philosophy, a completely different way of seeing the world. A world where everything is alive, everything has its own consciousness, its own soul. The stone beneath your feet, the drop of water in a glass, the piece of metal in the furnace. They are all living, breathing, feeling. And the alchemist is not just a scientist with scales and charts. They are an artist, a poet, a conversationalist who speaks with the soul of matter. They communicate with all things, not through words, but through fire, through a magnifying glass, through endless patience, and most importantly, through their own open heart. Did you know that a stone can carry within it the sorrow of millions of years of being buried? That a drop of mercury can contain anger, always seeking to escape, to separate? To the alchemist, everything has its own voice. It is only that modern life has made us too noisy, too hurried to be still enough to listen. They believe that lead is not a base metal, but an old, tired soul, burdened by the weight of matter. Gold, conversely, is not a precious metal, but a liberated soul that has reached its purest, most radiant, and perfect state. In the ancient, hand-copied books, passed down through generations, the alchemical process is likened to a symphony played very slowly. Each note is an element, each rhythm a cycle of the moon and sun. This process demands absolute harmony between the practitioner and the material. It is not a game of power, of dominating matter, but a humble journey deep into oneself to understand the laws of the universe operating in every clod of earth, every drop of dew. Long before the furnaces and castles of medieval Europe, the flame of alchemy burned quietly in the heart of the Egyptian land. They did not call it alchemy. They called it alchemia, the art of the Black Land. Chem is the ancient word for the fertile, black alluvial soil that the Nile River gifted to the people after each flood. Now, imagine a pristine morning on the banks of the Nile. The sky is a clear, cloudless blue. Flocks of white egrets fly in long lines, gliding over the peaks of the ancient temples of Luxor and Karnak. Beneath your feet is the shimmering black mud, still damp and cool after the flood has receded. It carries the scent of life, of rebirth. In the distance, farmers are bent over, sowing the first seeds into the earth. But hidden behind them, in the secret chambers of the sacred temples, others are also sowing. The priests, the sages. They sow pieces of metal into the fire. They sow questions into the soul of matter, and they sow prayers into the silence of the universe. They observed nature and drew a great truth from it. If the black land of Chem could die in the arid season and be miraculously reborn after the flood, then so could metal. And if metal could, so could the human soul. They believed that if a mummy could be preserved to safeguard the soul, K, and personality, Ba, for the journey to the afterlife, then a common piece of lead could also be embalmed, nurtured to hold on to the golden dream within it. And if this great universe operates according to the cyclical laws of the sun and moon, then so does the human soul. It can be purified, refined, stripped of the dross of ignorance, and finally transformed into pure light. Alchemy, to them, was the art of accelerating this natural evolution, a sacred assistance to both matter and spirit. Among the great alchemists of this period, tonight, I want to tell you about a special man named Zosimos of Panopolis, who lived around the 3rd century AD. He was not a craftsman. He was a mystic, a philosopher. Zosimos did not use a hammer, nor tongs. He did not dissect matter with violence. He used a different tool, one far more powerful and profound, the dream. In his surviving writings, Zosimos tells of strange dreams where he saw himself as the subject of the experiment. He dreamt he was thrown into a boiling cauldron, his flesh dissolving, his bones being stripped away. He felt the agony of disintegration, of death. His entire physical body, the entire ego he had ever known, was flayed, melted down into a formless liquid. But then, from within that destruction, a new form emerged. A new soul, a new being was born, purer, more transparent, and more understanding. This new being was no longer bound by worldly desires, no longer clouded by arrogance. Zosimos taught his students a fundamental lesson. The alchemist should not only focus on transmuting the substance outside, but first they must transmute themselves. Because if our minds are still full of greed, anger, and delusion, how can we hear the subtle voice of the metals? If our hearts are still clouded by prejudice and impatience, how can the light of truth be reflected clearly? And from then on, under the influence of Zosimos and the Gnostic thinkers, the journey of alchemy officially transformed. It was no longer a mere physical task, but had become a profound inner journey. Each experiment in the furnace was a metaphor for an internal purification process. Each step was a layer of the selfish ego falling away. Every failure, every explosion, Every time the mixture turned into a black sludge instead of a golden sheen was a gentle reminder from the universe. You are not yet pure enough. You are not yet humble enough. Go back and purify yourself first. When the Roman Empire fell, Europe plunged into a period often called the Dark Ages. Ancient knowledge was forgotten. Books were burned, and anyone with different ideas could be deemed a heretic. But the flame of knowledge, especially alchemical knowledge, was not extinguished. It simply moved eastward. While Europe was shrouded in fear and darkness, in the brilliant cities of Baghdad, Cordoba, and Cairo, the fire of alchemy burned brightly, even more intensely. Under the patronage of knowledge-loving Islamic caliphs, scholars translated the works of Zosimos, Plato, and Aristotle from Greek and Coptic into Arabic. They not only preserved this knowledge, but developed it to new heights. One of the brightest stars of this era was Jabir ibn Hayyan, whom the West would later call Geber. He didn't just write down chemical formulas. He wrote a philosophy of life. Jabir believed that everything in the universe was composed of four basic qualities: hot, cold, dry, and moist. And every metal had an internal balance, mizan. Lead was imbalanced, while gold had achieved perfect balance. He also believed that everything had an ideal, a perfect form it was striving to reach. Gold was simply the metal that had achieved its highest perfection. And so it is with humans. We, too, have an ideal state, a perfected version of ourselves. Transformation, according to Jabir, was not a violent coercion, but a guidance, a healing, like a physician healing a sick metal, helping it find its lost balance. It was a journey from a wild, chaotic state to a tame, harmonious one, from ignorance to wisdom. Geber viewed his laboratory as a temple. Before beginning his work, he would pray. Every action, from grinding minerals to adjusting the flame, was performed with absolute concentration and reverence. Each chemical reaction was a sacred ritual. Every mistake was a lesson in humility. And every success, no matter how small, was a confirmation that the universe is still listening to me, still in dialogue with me. When the works of Geber and other Arab scholars were translated into Latin and entered Europe, they breathed new life into the continent. European alchemy was born, carrying with it the grand dream of the philosopher's stone. You have heard of it, haven't you? In fairy tales, it is the substance that can turn any metal into gold, the elixir of eternal life. But to true alchemists, it was not a physical stone. It was a metaphor, a supreme symbol, a deep yearning for perfection. Some even called it the laughing stone, because when you stop frantically searching for it with your physical eyes and begin to feel its presence with a quiet heart, it will reveal itself, as silent and radiant as the dawn. It laughs at the naivety of humans who keep searching outside for what has always been within. To achieve this stone, it was believed that the alchemist had to guide both matter and their own soul through 4 seasons, 4 stages of the great work. Nigredo, the blackening. This is the winter of the soul, the darkest night. In the furnace, all ingredients are melted down, combined, and turned into a black, putrefying liquid called the prima materia, first matter. Correspondingly, the alchemist must confront their own shadow. This is the stage of dissolution, of depression, of facing the fears, traumas, and ugliest parts of oneself that we always deny. The ego must die. Arrogance must be incinerated. This is the most painful stage, but also the most necessary. There must be death for there to be rebirth. Albedo, the whitening. After the long night comes the dawn. After the black mass is washed many times with fire and patience, it gradually turns a pure, shimmering white, like silver. This is the spring of the soul. Having passed through the darkness, the mind is cleansed, becoming pure, serene, and as clear as the surface of an autumn lake. All burdens, sins, and afflictions are washed away. The soul is now like a blank slate, ready to receive the light of wisdom. This is the stage of forgiveness, of peace, and of hope. Citrinitas, the yellowing. As it continues to be gently heated, the white gradually turns to the yellow of the morning sun. This is the summer of the soul. The light is no longer the reflected light of the moon, as in the albedo stage, but the self-generated light of the sun. Wisdom blossoms. The alchemist not only knows, but understands. They see the connection between all things, see the laws of the universe. This is the stage of enlightenment, of wisdom, when the inner light begins to shine brightly. Rubedo, the reddening. This is the final stage, the culmination of the great work. The yellow deepens, turning to the deep red of blood, of a sunset, of a ruby. This is the autumn of the soul. The color red symbolizes the perfect union of all opposites, soul and body, the king, sulfur, and the queen, Mercury, consciousness, and the unconscious. The alchemist has now integrated all aspects of themselves. They are no longer a separate individual, but have become one with the universe. The philosopher's stone has been created, but it is not in the furnace. It is in their own heart. They have become the stone itself, a whole, complete being, capable of healing and transforming everything they touch, not by magic, but by love and understanding. This entire process, like the dreams of Zosimos, is never rushed, never loud, but little by little, over many years, perhaps even a lifetime, you are no longer the person you were yesterday. And now, let us return to that ancient room. Let us return to the fire burning in the furnace. Can you hear it? The fire is breathing. It does not breathe with air, but with your own silence. Each flicker of the flame is a whisper, a question echoing from antiquity. Have you truly listened to yourself today? In the gentle darkness of the room, amidst the soft vibration of the glass vials, in the scent of herbs slowly smoldering on the embers, you can allow all the burdens and worries of daily life to dissolve into the smoke. There is no need to strive to become gold. There is no need to search for any magical stone. Just sit there, still, and realize a simple truth. You, yourself, are already a miracle. When you dare to look deep within, dare to face your own shadow, and dare to believe in the light that already exists in your heart. Part 3. The Lost Cities, the Last Breath Beneath the Earth. My dear friend, tonight, as the sounds of the modern world gently fade into silence, I invite you on a special journey. A journey not up towards the distant stars, but deep down into the very heart of the earth. Do not be afraid. This is not a fall into darkness, but a soft step into a forgotten world. A place where sunlight is but a distant concept, where the sound of the wind is only a story told, and where our ancestors, with extraordinary resilience, turned darkness into a home, hard rock into a shelter, and the act of fleeing into an art of survival. Together, we will travel to Cappadocia, a mystical land in the heart of modern-day Turkey. When you think of Cappadocia, perhaps you picture a vibrant sky filled with hundreds of hot air balloons at dawn, floating above a surreal landscape of fairy chimneys. cone-shaped rock formations rising from the ground. But tonight, do not look up. Look down. For the truest, most mysterious, and most profound beauty of this land lies not where the eye can see, but where the feet cannot feel. Underground. There, hidden deep beneath the rich, red soil, are cities. Cities with no more light, no more morning calls, no more bustling markets. But they once had a pulse. They once had life. They once sheltered tens of thousands of souls. Our story begins on a seemingly ordinary day in 1963. In the small town of Derinkuyu, an unnamed man decided to renovate his home. Perhaps he just wanted a little more space, or maybe the old wall in his cellar had grown too damp. He swung a hammer. A dry crack echoed, followed by a dull thud. The wall broke open, but behind it was not the solid earth and rock he had expected. A cold, dark void and an ancient gust of air, carrying the scent of damp earth and of time itself, suddenly rushed out. No one, not even the man himself, could have guessed that this simple swing of a hammer was the key that would unlock a gateway to a world forgotten for centuries. Behind that wall was a tunnel. Curious, he lit a torch and stepped inside. His courage was rewarded. After the narrow tunnel, there was a room, then another room. A spiral stone staircase, worn smooth by the footsteps of countless generations, led deeper still. A vertical ventilation shaft, soaring upwards like an inverted well. A deep well, its still water reflecting the flickering torchlight. And then, he realized, this was not a cave, not an expanded cellar. This was a city with no sky, a city born in silence and rediscovered by a twist of fate. Derinkuyu is not just a large, solitary cave. It is a true metropolis, a marvel of architecture carved deep into the soft, volcanic tuff rock. Imagine a colossal anthill, but instead of ants, it was built by human hands and minds. This city extends nearly 85 meters, 279 feet, into the earth, equivalent to an 18-story building, but 18 stories down. With an estimated capacity for up to 20,000 people, along with their livestock and food supplies, Derinkuyu had everything necessary for a complete, self-sustaining community. The upper levels, closest to the surface, were for common living, homes, sleeping quarters, and even stables for horses and other livestock. Deeper down were the more critical areas, vast warehouses for storing grain, oil, and wine. Wine and oil presses, with their heavy stone wheels and intricately carved channels. Communal kitchens, their ceilings blackened with the soot of centuries of cooking. And remarkably, schools. Try to imagine children sitting on the cool stone floor, learning to read and write by the flickering light of oil lamps, the teacher's voice echoing strangely in the enclosed space. And in the deepest, most sacred levels were the churches. Large chambers with vaulted ceilings, altars carved directly from the rock, and simple but powerful crosses etched into the walls. Here, faith did not need stained glass windows or soaring spires. Faith existed in the very silence and permanence of the stone. The entire city was connected by an ingenious ventilation system. Over 50 large ventilation shafts, some as deep as 70-80 meters, not only brought fresh air from the surface to the lowest levels, but also served as wells, providing a limitless source of life-giving water. The network of tunnels, stairs, and corridors was a labyrinth designed to confuse any invader. Can you imagine it? A child born and raised underground, perhaps for months or even years during a season of turmoil, who had never seen the sun, A mother preparing a meal in the dim light, using a clay oven, baking fragrant loaves of bread beside the cold stone walls. An old man praying under the faint glow of an oil lamp, his shadow stretching long against the rough-hewn rock. Life did not stop. It simply retreated, coiled in on itself, and continued its rhythm deep within the Mother Earth. What is even more astonishing is that Derinkuyu was not unique. It is merely the largest and most famous of hundreds of underground cities and settlements discovered in Cappadocia. Kaymakli, another nearby city, is not as deep, but is wider, spreading out like a complex web. Özkanak, Mazi, Gazimir, each is a distinct labyrinth with its own unique architectural features and layout. But the greatest marvel is the connection. Many of these cities did not exist in isolation. They were linked by tunnels that stretched for kilometers. A tunnel nearly 9 kilometers, 5.5 miles, long, is believed to connect Derinkuyu with Kaymakli. Imagine that. You could leave one city, walk through the earth for hours in near total darkness with only a torch in hand, and emerge in another city without ever once having to surface for a breath of air. These were not just shelters. This was a vast network of defense and survival, a parallel world that existed right beneath our feet. Each city was a fortress. Each corridor was a secret passage. Each massive, millstone-shaped door, some weighing several tons, could be rolled out from a niche in the wall to seal a passageway in an instant, isolating sections and turning the labyrinth into a deadly trap for uninvited guests. The biggest question, the one that still hangs in the silent air of these cities, is why? Why did ancient people accept such a harsh life in the dark? Were they truly living in constant fear? Or were they more intelligent, more far-sighted than we imagine? Historians and archaeologists have proposed many theories. The most common is that these cities were a refuge from constant invasions. Cappadocia's strategic location made it a battlefield for thousands of years. From the Phrygians, Assyrians, and Persians, to the conquests of Alexander the Great, the rise of the Roman Empire, the raids of Arab armies, the Mongols, and finally, the Seljuk Turks. Faced with powerful armies, the people of Cappadocia did not build high walls. They dug deep. Another compelling theory suggests they were a haven for early Christians fleeing persecution by the Roman Empire in the 2nd and 3rd centuries AD. Later, during the Byzantine iconoclasm, 8th-9th centuries, Christians continued to use these cities to protect their faith and their religious icons. This would explain the presence of so many churches, monasteries, and baptisteries underground. But the truth is, no one could build a city as complex as Derinkuyu in a few weeks or months to deal with a sudden invasion. Their scale and sophistication point to a plan prepared long in advance, meticulous, systematic, and very likely started thousands of years ago, perhaps even by the ancient Hittites, some 4,000 years ago. This leads to more daring hypotheses. Perhaps they were not just fleeing from other people. Some researchers speculate that the cities were built to escape natural disasters like earthquakes or extreme climate change, such as prolonged winters or scorching heat waves. The Earth provided a living environment with a stable temperature year-round. And then there are the more mystical theories, that perhaps the ancient people knew of a threat that we do not. A threat not from war, not from nature, but from something nameless, something that mainstream history has forgotten. Whatever the truth may be, these cities are not symbols of fear, but a testament to preparation, adaptability, and an indomitable will to survive. Join me for a moment and close your eyes. Imagine you are no longer in your familiar room. You are in a small chamber hewn from rock, only a few square meters in size. There are no windows. The only light comes from a small oil lamp, casting a warm yellow glow in a thin wisp of smoke. There is no wind, no blue sky, no birdsong to announce the dawn. You awaken to the silence or to the soft call of a loved one. The new day begins not with sunlight, but with the relighting of the lamp. Breakfast is a dark, dense bread, eaten with a few salted olives and dry cheese. Water is drawn from the deep well, cool and pure. Children do not run in open fields. They play in the wider corridors, playing hide-and-seek behind stone pillars, their clear laughter echoing strangely in the enclosed space. The adults have their tasks. The men tend to the livestock, check the food stores, or continue the eternal work, carving, expanding the city. The women grind grain, bake bread in the communal kitchens, weave cloth, or mend clothing. There is no absolute privacy. Life is deeply communal. People gather in niches carved into the walls, sharing stories, sharing news from the world above, if there is any. The chapel resounds with the sound of chanted prayers, softly whispered, enough to warm the soul, enough to keep this place from feeling lifeless. The lowest, hottest levels were used as kitchens, so the smoke could be channeled up the ventilation shafts in a controlled manner. The middle levels were the main residential areas. The uppermost levels, closest to the surface, were the guard posts, with the giant, wheel-like stones always ready to be rolled into place, sealing the entrance in seconds. No one lived in panic. They lived with system, with rules, with organization. They had turned a hostile environment into an orderly society, an absolute sanctuary. They proved that a home is not necessarily a place with sunlight, but a place with loved ones and with safety. If you stay in these cities long enough, and if you listen with your entire being, you might just hear the stone breathe. It is not a physical sound, but a feeling. It is the murmur of water in the deep well. It is the echo of your own footsteps in a long, dark corridor. It is the sound of a small pebble falling from the ceiling. It is the echo of a heavy stone mill grinding dry grain. And above all, it is the whisper of time, which continues to pass steadily, even with no sun or moon to measure it by. Time is marked by the soot stains from oil lamps on the walls, by the hollows worn into the stairs, by the smoothness of the walls where people used to lean. Look closer at those walls. There are small, simple carvings, a cross, a figure with arms outstretched in prayer, a fish, the secret symbol of the early Christians. And there are also strange symbols that no one today has deciphered. Concentric circles, zigzagging lines, drawings that look like star maps. What are they? A message for posterity? Religious symbols? Or simply markers to help people navigate the underground maze? No one knows for sure. But one thing is certain. They are not random. Every single mark, every symbol, is a breath, an imprint of a person, a faith, a story that once existed here. They are silent voices, waiting for us to listen. And then, just as mysteriously as they built this world, they left it. There are no signs of a final battle, no skeletons left behind, no records telling of a massacre or a devastating plague. They simply disappeared. The cities were gradually filled with the dust of time. The entrances were buried by landslides. Weeds and trees grew over them, hiding all traces. The story of the world below ground survived only in oral traditions, in the legends of the old, and then slowly faded and was forgotten. They left, perhaps as quietly and orderly as they had once entered. They left no explanation. Why did they abandon these impregnable fortresses? Perhaps the threat of invasion had finally ended. Perhaps the later Ottoman Empire brought a period of relative peace, making life underground unnecessary. They slowly returned to the surface, built new homes under the sun, integrated into the world above, and the memory of life in the darkness became just a distant part of their past. We only know they were there because their footprints are still imprinted on the earthen floors, because broken pottery bowls still lie in the corners of kitchens, because the soot from their lamps still blackens the ceilings, and because when you are silent, truly silent, in a room deep underground, you feel as if you can still hear the heartbeat of the city echoing in the cold stone. Today, as we walk through the corridors of Derinkuyu, under the light of modern electric lamps, we cannot help but wonder, who were the first architects? The Hittites? The Phrygians? Or some even more ancient civilization we have yet to discover? Why did they choose to live deep in the earth when the surface had sunlight, wind, and a vast sky? And who, or what, were they truly fleeing from? Perhaps it was an enemy of flesh and blood. Perhaps it was a terrifying natural disaster. Or perhaps it was something older, more supernatural, a primal fear that modern man, with all his rationality, no longer has the capacity to understand. The truth is, we may never know the full answer. And perhaps it is precisely that, the not knowing, the open-ended mystery, that is the most captivating part, making these underground cities one of the most fascinating and haunting chapters in human history. They are a reminder that our world still holds many wonders, and that the past is never truly dead. It is only sleeping, waiting to be awakened. My dear friend, if there is any place on this earth that proves so eloquently that human beings can adapt to any circumstance, that the will to live can triumph even over darkness, it is Cappadocia, a place where rock became home, where darkness became sanctuary, and where silence became a noble form of existence. And now, as our story comes to a close, as you slowly drift into sleep, try to imagine one last time. Imagine you are lying in a room made of stone, dozens of meters beneath the earth. Outside, on the surface, there may be storms, howling winds, the anxieties of the world. But in here, there is only absolute peace. Only the steadfastness of the rock embracing you. You hear a pulse, a breath, a distant memory. Part 4. Dreams and Darkness. When the soul leaves the body, this is a world not found on any map ever drawn by man. No compass can point the way here. No companion can walk with us, hold our hand. In this place, you are alone. I am alone. Each of us is a solitary journey. A world that mortal eyes have never seen, yet no soul has not visited, if only for a fleeting moment. It is the world of dreams. From the dawn of time, from the first night that man looked up at the starry sky and felt his own smallness, he knew one thing for certain. Something magical happens in sleep that reason can never explain. Imagine that prehistoric man. His body lies still in a cold stone cave, his breath steady, the animal hide draped over him, rising and falling gently. His body is there, motionless, heavy, but his mind is not. His mind is wandering, soaring. His hands do not move, yet his soul feels the wind rushing by, flying over vast grasslands he never dared to set foot on by day. His soul is crossing deep blue oceans, diving to the depths with strange, luminous creatures. His soul is climbing towering peaks, touching the white clouds he had never seen in real life. The images that appear in his mind, sometimes clearer than daylight, sharp in every detail, sometimes tangled, more chaotic than a dense forest, a labyrinth with no escape. And when dawn breaks, when the first rays of sunlight slip into the cave and wake him, those images dissolve, but they leave in him strange echoes, intense emotions like a reverberation from some distant, ancient realm. The ancients had no word for hallucination in their vocabulary. They did not see it as the product of a tired brain. They called it by a much more reverent name. They called it the language of the soul. They believed that when we sleep, the soul does not. The soul begins its own journey. And our journey tonight, my dear friend, will begin in the very place where dreams were cherished as oracles. Let your mind drift to the land between two great rivers. Let your mind drift to the sun-scorched land of Mesopotamia, where the Sumerian civilization blossomed between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. Feel the fine dust under your feet. Feel the sweltering heat of the day now subsiding, giving way to the cool desert night and a sky so thick with stars, brighter than you have ever seen. This is where the first mud bricks were dried under the sun to build cities, towering ziggurats. And this is also where dreams were first recorded in human history, not on paper, but on heavy clay tablets. Imagine a scribe sitting under the dim light of an oil lamp. He carefully uses a reed stylus, carving each clumsy yet reverent, cuneiform character onto a moist clay tablet. He is not writing about a harvest or a war. He is recording a dream, the dream of the great King Gilgamesh. In his dream last night, the king saw a strange sight. He saw a huge meteorite fall from the sky into the city of Uruk. It was so heavy, he could not lift it. But his people gathered around it. They kissed the meteorite. They worshipped it as a god. Upon waking, King Gilgamesh was greatly perplexed, and the king summoned the dream interpreters, those who spent their lives listening to the dreams of others. They were the translators between the world of humans and the world of the gods. After hearing the king's account, they interpreted it. The meteorite falling from the sky was an omen of an unparalleled companion who was about to appear, a man as strong as the heavens, who would become the king's soulmate. That man was Enkidu, the wild man from the steppe. In Mesopotamia, it was firmly believed that a dream was a message. The god Enki, the god of wisdom and fresh water, was the one who sent dreams to mortals. But these messages were encrypted, and only the goddess Nanshi, the goddess of justice and dream interpretation, could help humans decipher them. In the courts of Sumer, Akkad, and Babylon, there was always a corps of dream interpreters. They were the king's most important advisors. A king, before going into battle, had to recount his dream. A dream of a soaring eagle could be the order to march. A dream of a venomous snake could be a warning of betrayal. A king who dared to disregard a dream could cause an entire city to collapse, to be submerged in floods or plagues. Even an ordinary farmer, if he dreamt of being bathed in cool, fresh water, it could be an omen of a bountiful harvest. And if he recounted that good dream, he might be summoned to the temple to make an offering, to thank the gods. Here, a dream was not idle chatter to be forgotten upon waking. A dream was law. It was a command. It was something as sacred, powerful, and terrifying as the roar of thunder in the dark desert night. Now, let the stream of consciousness carry us further west, to a land of great monuments, where people dreamed not only of life. We are drifting on the legendary Nile River. The silver moonlight casts a shimmering layer upon the vast, tranquil water. In the distance, the colossal pyramids rise like man-made mountains, silent, majestic, guarding the secrets of the pharaohs for thousands of years. In ancient Egypt, people didn't just dream of daily life, they dreamed of death. But do not be afraid, my dear friend. For them, death was not the end. It was merely a transition. And in their view, life and death were not separate. They intertwined like day and night. Sleep, for the Egyptians, was a temporary death. Every night, as they fell asleep, they believed their soul, called Ba, temporarily left the physical body, called Ka, to travel. And a dream was the small door to the other world, leading to the underworld of Duat. Every dream was a rehearsal, a drill for the greatest journey a soul must undertake after death. Look there, on the walls of an ancient temple, or inside a tomb sealed for millennia. Dreams are meticulously depicted. Here is an image of a soul riding on the sunboat of the god Ra, crossing the 12 hours of darkness in the underworld. There is a scene of the soul confronting demons, monsters guarding the gates. And here, the most crucial scene, the soul standing before the scales of justice, where the jackal-headed god Anubis places the heart of the deceased on one side of the scale, and the feather of the goddess Ma'at, truth and justice, on the other. If the heart, heavy with sin, outweighed the feather, it would be devoured by the monster Ammit. The Egyptians did not dream haphazardly. They dreamed ritually. There were special temples called dream infirmaries, where priests and common people alike would perform purification rituals, then sleep within the earth, in dark, sacred chambers, to await a guiding dream. A pharaoh needs to know how to build his tomb to be safe and eternal. The priests would sleep to request a dream from the god Thoth. A general needs a strategy to defeat the enemy. He would go to the temple, hoping the god Horus would appear in his dream. A papyrus, over 3,000 years old, has been found, considered the first dream dictionary of mankind, possibly from the time of Rameses the Great. It records hundreds of dreams and their meanings. To see fire in a dream was a good omen, signaling life and power. To see rising water was a warning of danger, of chaos. To see oneself eating the flesh of a crocodile, a fearsome creature of the Nile, meant you would gain power. You would dominate and devour your enemies. A correctly interpreted dream could rewrite the plan for a war. It could change the order of succession to the throne. It could decide the fate of thousands. The ancient Egyptians understood something profound. Not all that is trustworthy, not all truth, comes from the glaring light of day. There are truths that are only revealed in the darkness, in the silence of sleep. And now, our mind continues its journey, crossing the Mediterranean to a land of philosophy and art, where dreams were not just oracles, but also medicine. We are in Greece. Feel the fresh air, fragrant with olive trees and wildflowers. The cicadas drone in the groves. The golden afternoon sun is pouring down on the temples of pure white marble. Here, at the cradle of Western civilization, dreams stepped out of mysterious prophecies to enter the temples with a completely new role. Dreams were not only mythology, but also medicine, therapy, a part of aesthetics and philosophy. Most famous throughout the Greek world were the Asclepians, sacred healing centers dedicated to the god of medicine, Asclepius. These were not hospitals as we understand them today. This was where people came to be healed, through dreams. Imagine you are a patient, perhaps a soldier tormented by a wound, a woman unable to conceive, or a philosopher suffering from chronic headaches. You have made a long pilgrimage to reach this temple, situated on a quiet hill. First, you must undergo a process of purification. You will bathe in a sacred spring, wear pure white clothes, and fast for several days. You will make offerings to the god Asclepius, praying with all your heart. Then, as night falls, you will be led into a special area called the Abaton. It is a long, dark hall where you will lie down to sleep on a hide among busts of the healing god and sacred snakes, the symbol of Asclepius, slithering silently on the floor. The atmosphere is serene. There is only the sound of the wind sighing through the stone columns and the whispers of other patients. You close your eyes, carrying your pain and your hope into sleep. And then you dream. In your dream, you see a god with a white beard and a kind face, Asclepius himself, stepping out of the shadows. He approaches you. He doesn't say much, just gently places his hand on your place of pain. You feel a wave of warmth, a pleasant sensation spreading throughout your body. Or perhaps you dream that he whispers advice in your ear. Eat this herb, bathe in that spring. There are even records carved on the stone walls of the temple, telling of miraculous dream surgeries. One man recounted that the god Asclepius operated on his abdomen in a dream, removing a venomous snake that was coiled in his stomach. And when he woke up the next morning, the excruciating pain that had tormented him for years had suddenly vanished completely. The next morning, you wake up, your heart light. You will recount your dream to the priests. Based on it, they will give you the final treatment. If you were healed by the god in a dream, you would carve your name and your story on a stone tablet as a thank you, leaving evidence for those who come after. But the Greeks did not only see dreams as medicine, they also believed that dreams were philosophy. Plato, the great philosopher, once wrote in his Republic, "In dreams, the soul can step out of the bonds of the body to see its own essence, to contemplate eternal truths." A dream, for him, was a gateway for the soul to temporarily escape the prison of the body and touch the world of pure ideas. A dream in Greece, therefore, was both a medicine for the body and a lesson for the soul. But some dreams held an even more special meaning, a connection not only with the gods, but also with those who had passed. In many cultures around the world, from east to west, there is a common belief, a profoundly shared experience. Dreaming of a deceased loved one is not merely a nostalgic memory. It is considered a true encounter, a call from the other side. Let your mind travel to a cobblestone street in ancient Rome. A family is steeped in anxiety. The father, a general who just fell on a distant battlefield, but his body has not been brought back and buried with proper rites. Night after night, the wife dreams of her husband's return. In the dream, he says nothing, just stands there, his face sad, his clothes tattered, covered in mud. The ancient Romans believed that if a dead person was not properly buried, their soul, called lemures or larvae, could not find peace. They would become restless ghosts, wandering the earth and returning in the dreams of their loved ones to demand justice, to beg for a proper resting place. That dream was not a disturbance, but a cry for help. And the family would have to do everything possible to find the body, or at least perform a symbolic burial, so that the soul of the departed could rest in peace. Now cross a continent to ancient China, in a wooden house with a curved roof and red lanterns. The eldest son of the family repeatedly dreams of his deceased grandfather. In the dream, the grandfather scolds him for neglecting the ancestral worship, for letting the family altar grow cold from lack of incense. This dream was seen as a sacred reminder. It did not come from the brain. It came from the lineage, from the bloodline. The very next morning, the son would have to clean the altar, prepare offerings, light fragrant incense sticks, and sincerely apologize to his ancestors. He believed that only by doing so would he receive their blessings, and the family would be at peace. In the realm of dreams, there is no distance between the living and the dead. In the realm of dreams, an apology delayed in the physical world can be heard and accepted. In the realm of dreams, a final message left unsaid can be fully conveyed. And unfinished stories, unresolved conflicts from when the other person was alive, can be gently stitched back together by a nocturnal encounter. Dreams are the fragile yet sturdy bridge, spanning the abyss of death, connecting two worlds. And sometimes, dreams don't just connect individuals. They have the power to change the course of history. Some nights, a dream comes, not just to one person, but seemingly to an entire era, and changes it forever. Let us return to the year 312 AD. The Roman Emperor Constantine is preparing for a life-or-death battle, the Battle of the Milvian Bridge. His opponent, Maxentius, has a much stronger army. The future of the entire Roman Empire hangs on the outcome of this battle. The night before the clash, Constantine falls into an anxious sleep. And in his dream, or a vision just before dawn, he sees an extraordinary sight. In the sky, a cross ablaze, brighter than the sun, and beneath it, the words in Greek, En teutonica. In this sign, you will conquer. Constantine awakens, his heart filled with a powerful conviction. He believes this is a sign from the God of the Christians. Immediately, he orders his soldiers to paint the symbol of the cross, the Chi Rho, on their shields. And that day, his army wins an unbelievable victory. After the battle, Constantine converts to Christianity. His action laid the foundation for Christianity to become the state religion of the Roman Empire, forever changing the face of Western civilization. It all started with a dream. Let us go further east, to the steppes of Central Asia in the 14th century. Tamerlane, or Timur the Conqueror, a brilliant but also incredibly brutal military leader, is planning his conquests. One night, he dreams of his great ancestor, Genghis Khan, appearing to him. In the dream, the majestic ancestor hands him a flaming sword, a sacred sword. When he awakens, Tamerlane has no doubt. He sees it as a mandate from heaven, a sign that he is the heir to the Mongol legacy of conquest. And the next morning, he begins the largest and most brutal military campaign of his life, building an empire that stretches from India to Turkey. Even in modern times, the power of dreams still resonates. When Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. stood before hundreds of thousands of people in Washington and delivered his historic speech, he repeated the refrain, "I have a dream." He was not merely talking about a hope or a plan. He was using the language of prophets, of visionaries. His dream was a vision of an equal world, an image that had burned in his deepest consciousness, as clear and powerful as the dreams that Constantine or Tamerlane had seen. It had the power to move millions of hearts and become the soul of an entire civil rights movement. Those dreams, they're not just random images. They are fires lit in the darkness of the soul, and when brought into the light, they can illuminate the whole world. And so, we return to this night, to your room, to this silence. Our modern world, with its electric lights, its screens that never turn off, its hurried pace of life, seems to have driven away the darkness and its mysteries. We wake up from a strange dream, perhaps of flying, of being lost, or of seeing an old friend. And our first reaction is often to laugh it off and say, "It was just a dream." We hastily get up, hastily make a cup of coffee, hastily check our phones, hastily rush into a new day. We no longer recount our dreams to our loved ones as if we were telling them about a real journey. We no longer write them down in a notebook as if we were recording a sacred text. We have let those messages, those images, slip away like sand through our fingers. But my dear friend, do you know? The ancients, from Sumer to Egypt to Greece, they may not have had our technology, but they possessed a wisdom that we seem to have lost. They understood that a dream is the most honest mirror of the soul. It is where we must face ourselves in the deep darkness, when the social masks are gone, when there are no more lies to reassure ourselves, no more pretense. In a dream, your deepest fear can take the form of a monster. Your greatest aspiration can become a pair of wings. Your regret can be a road with no exit. Your love can be a warm sun. We have been too quick to forget. We have been too awake to remember. We use reason to analyze, to dismiss, instead of using our hearts to listen. But what if tonight, just for tonight, you tried to do things differently? What if you tried to listen to the echoes from your own dream world? Close your eyes once more, my dear friend. If you are still awake, let your eyelids grow heavy and shut. This time, not to escape the world, but to actively step into another world, right inside you. A world where the Sumerians could hear the whispers of the gods through symbols. A world where the Egyptians could converse with death and rehearse for immortality. A world where the Greeks could find healing for both body and soul. And a place where, perhaps, our departed loved ones, our ancestors, are still waiting for a meeting. In this gentle and safe darkness, allow your soul to leave your body. You don't need to go far. Just go deep inside, deep into the forest of your own consciousness. Don't try to analyze. Don't try to control. Just observe. Listen. Feel. What images will appear? What sounds will echo? Where what you see, what you feel, is very likely what you have forgotten about yourself. The dream is waiting for you. And perhaps your soul is also waiting for something from you, waiting for you to listen. And so, our journey through the deep stretches of time and human memory comes to a close. We have journeyed together through 3 worlds, not 3 geographical lands, but 3 realms of consciousness, 3 grand ways in which ancient people confronted, interacted with, and endured an eternal reality, constant change. These three stories, of the blacksmith, the alchemist, and the builders of underground cities, converge into an epic of humanity's struggle and hope. The first world, the world of the naked flame and austere strength. Listen closely, and you will hear the resounding strike of a hammer, a primal rhythm shattering the dawn silence in an ancient village. This is the world of the blacksmith. Here, fire is not an abstract concept. It is a living, ferocious, and powerful entity. It roars in the forge, licking the red-hot coals, transforming lifeless iron ore into a molten flow like the blood of the sun. The blacksmith, his face smudged with soot and his bare arms sinewy and strong, stands as a primordial creator god. He does not pray. He does not contemplate. He acts. Transformation in the blacksmith's world is a direct confrontation, an uncompromising battle. He faces the chaos of raw material, the rough, formless ore, and through sweat, muscle, and an iron will, he subjugates it. Each hammer blow is not just a physical act, it is a fierce dialogue between human will and the stubbornness of matter. The shower of sparks erupting from the clash of metals is the very language of that dialogue. He takes chaos and hammers it, shapes it, and pulls it into the form of a plow to till the soil, a hoe to cultivate the land, or a sword to protect. He turns the potential destruction of the flame into the power of creation. The blacksmith teaches us the first and most fundamental lesson of existence: to face challenges, to labor, and to shape the world with our own hands. He is the embodiment of realism, of resilience, of the belief that humanity can and must impose order upon chaos through action. The second world, the world of the tamed flame and sacred wisdom. Leaving the clamor of the forge, we step into the quiet of a different space. A secret laboratory where light filters dimly through narrow windows, and the air is thick with the scent of herbs, minerals, and ancient mysteries. This is the world of the alchemist. Here, the flame no longer roars. It is controlled, carefully nurtured in retorts and sealed crucibles. It is a flame of patience, of refinement, of intellect. If the blacksmith seeks to conquer chaos with strength, the alchemist seeks to understand it. He believes that behind the chaotic facade of the material world lies a sacred order, a perfect cosmic law set by the Creator. For the alchemist, transformation is not a battle, but a spiritual pilgrimage. His ultimate goal, the opus magnum, the great work, is not merely to turn lead into gold. That is a grand metaphor for the process of purification and perfection. Gold is the symbol of perfection, of purity, of the soul cleansed of its worldly impurities. The process of melting, distilling, and crystallizing metals in his laboratory runs parallel to the process of purifying his own soul. He seeks to decipher the language of God hidden within the structure of matter, not only to master the world outside, but to achieve enlightenment from within. The alchemist teaches us that to deal with chaos, we need not only strength, but also wisdom. Not only action, but also contemplation. He is the embodiment of the thirst for knowledge, the search for deeper meaning, and the belief that the greatest transformation is the transformation of the soul. The third world, the world of enduring stone and the sheltered dream. Finally, we leave the flame behind, both the naked and the controlled, to descend deep into the womb of Mother Earth. We arrive at the underground cities of Cappadocia, where there is no sunlight, only the vast silence of stone. This is the world of those who chose an entirely different path to face chaos. Instead of fighting it or seeking to understand it, they chose to hide from it. For them, chaos took a concrete form: brutal invading armies, the harshness of nature, or an outside world that had become too hostile and dangerous. And their answer was stone. They did not change the world. They changed themselves by merging with the world, becoming a part of the earth itself. With rudimentary tools and an extraordinary persistence that spanned generations, they carved deep into the soft volcanic rock, creating a colossal stone uterus to shelter life. The winding corridors, the rooms, the churches, the food storerooms, all lay beneath the ground, protected by the permanence and solidity of stone. Transformation here is an act of passivity, of refuge, of turning weakness into strength. They turn the stillness of stone into a fortress. They teach us that sometimes the wisest way to face a storm is not to stand against it, but to find safe harbor and wait for it to pass. They are the embodiment of community strength, of endurance, of the capacity to withstand, and of faith and permanence. They protected the spark of life by hiding it, nurturing it in the dark until the day it could burn brightly again. Conclusion: the spark in the darkness, fire, stone, and dream. 3 elements, 3 metaphors, but in the end, they all tell the same story. It is the story of a tiny, fragile spark, the spark of life, of consciousness, of hope, and the ceaseless struggle to keep it from being extinguished by the surrounding darkness, by the chaos of the universe, by the oblivion of time. The blacksmith keeps that spark alive by hammering it into steel, turning it into tools and weapons, forcing it to serve human purpose. The alchemist keeps that spark alive by nurturing it in his flask, trying to understand its nature, distilling it into its purest form. And the people of Cappadocia keep that spark alive by shielding it with stone, protecting it from the winds of destruction. And the dream is the invisible space where that spark truly exists. The dream is the aspiration for a bountiful harvest in the blacksmith's mind as he forges a plow. The dream is the vision of spiritual perfection in the alchemist's mind as he watches lead melt. The dream is the memory of sunlight and the hope for a peaceful future in the hearts of the children growing up in the underground city. The dream is where the soul roams free, where consciousness takes shape, where hope is kindled even in the darkest of circumstances. Fire and stone are the means, but the dream is the purpose, the driving force. From the echoing clang in a small village, to the whisper in a secret laboratory, to the reverberation in a deep stone corridor, and finally, to the silence of a personal dream, it is all part of the same great journey, the journey of transformation. And that journey never ends. Today, we are no longer blacksmiths, alchemists, or builders of underground cities in the literal sense. But in essence, we remain the same. The engineers designing skyscrapers, the programmers writing code that shapes the virtual world. They are the modern blacksmiths, using the fire of logic and technology to subdue the chaos of infinite possibilities. The scientists in advanced laboratories, the philosophers, the artists. They are the modern alchemists, seeking to decode the profound laws of the universe and the human soul. And all of us, when we build families, communities, and safe spaces for love and creativity, we are all carving into the rock of reality to create a shelter for the spark of humanity. The struggle continues. Chaos is ever present in new forms, but the spark still burns. It is passed from generation to generation. In every story told, every invention created, every act of love, every dream of a brighter tomorrow. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the flame, the stone, and the dream tonight. As you fall asleep, may you feel that warm spark within yourself and know that you are part of a great story, a transformation that never ends. Good night.